I always believed that family takes care of family. That's just how I was raised. So when I overheard my son, David, and his wife, Susan, making the plan to use me as a full-time nurse for her sick mother, well, it didn't just break my heart. It changed everything. But before I get to that part, before the phone calls and the plane tickets, I need to tell you how it all started, because they couldn't have done it if I wasn't in the exact position I was in. My name is Rhonda Boylan. I'm 67 years old, and for the last 3 years, ever since my husband Robert passed, I've been living all by myself in this big, empty house in Lakewood, Colorado. Robert and I bought this place, goodness, must be 35 years ago. It was our dream. For bedrooms, a big yard for our son David to play in, a finished basement. It was a house full of life, full of noise and messy projects and holiday dinners. Now it's just too much. It's not a home anymore. It's a list of chores. The yard that Robert used to love, the one where he'd spend all Saturday, it's just a square of grass. I have to pay a crew too much money to mow every other Thursday. And the house itself, it's just too big for one person. The stairs. Oh, these stairs. My knees aren't what they used to be. And I swear there's a new creak in my joints for every creak in the floorboards. Just doing a load of laundry from the upstairs bedroom, all the way down to the washer in the basement, feels like a 3-day event. I have to stop and catch my breath on the landing. Robert was an engineer, so practical, always had a project. He's the one who built the bookshelves in the study and the big deck out back. I walk past that study, and I can still smell the wood stain and his Old Spice aftershave. It's been 3 years, but some days it feels like he just stepped out to the hardware store. But he's not coming back. And I'm the one left to figure out what to do with the leaky faucet and the drafty windows. It's not just the physical work. It's the cost. The property taxes in Lakewood keep going up every single year. The heating bill for 4 empty bedrooms is, well, it's just plain ridiculous. I find myself closing the vents, shutting the doors to the guest rooms, living in just the kitchen and the den. The whole house is starting to feel less like a home and more like a museum of a life I used to have. But the silence is the worst part. Robert was a big, loud, wonderful man. He'd have the news on in the morning, or the football game on Sunday, or just be whistling in the kitchen. Now, the only sound is the refrigerator humming. It's a lonely, lonely sound. I've lived a full life. I was a good wife. I raised a good son. I volunteered at the school library. I did everything I was supposed to do. And now I'm at a crossroads. You spend your whole life being needed as a mom, as a wife, as a room parent, as a caregiver for my own mother at the end. Then one day you wake up and you're not. You're just a spare part, an extra piece. All I wanted was to be part of the family again, not just the old lady they visit on holidays. My son, David, and his wife, Susan, live about 30 minutes away. They have my 2 beautiful grandchildren, Maya and Ben. Maya is 10 now. She's bright and loves to read. Ben is 7, and he's all boy, just like David was. I have their school pictures on my fridge, right next to a grocery list that's always just for one person. It's a sad little piece of paper, but I don't see them much. David is busy with his job. And Susan is busy with her own life, and she and I, we're not close. We're polite. You know that feeling? It's all, oh, Rhonda, that's nice. But she never really talks to me. I'd see pictures on social media of them at the park or going out for ice cream, and my heart would just ache. Why didn't they call me? I'm right here. I could have pushed Ben on the swing. I could have bought the ice cream, but the phone never rang. I felt myself becoming invisible. So there I was, 67 years old, lonely, sitting in a house that was draining my bank account and my spirit. I was worried about my future, worried about being alone, and desperate to feel needed again. I was the perfect target, and that's when my son, David, and his wife, Susan, called me. They had a solution, a perfect solution, they called it, and like a fool, I believed them. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning. I remember because I was just finishing my second cup of coffee, staring at a giant, ugly cobweb in the corner of the dining room I just didn't have the energy to tackle. When the phone rang, I saw David on the caller ID, and my heart did a little flip. It was unusual for him to call on a weekday. David, hi honey, is everything okay? Hey mom. Yeah, everyone's fine, he said. He sounded serious. Listen, are you busy tonight? Susan and I we wanted to stop by and talk with you about something. Talk. My mind raced. Was someone sick? Was it the grandkids? Oh, of course. I'm not busy at all. Is it about the kids? No, Mom, he said. It's about you. Well, that just about stopped my heart. Me? Goodness. Okay, I'll see you at 7. The rest of the day, I was a wreck. I was tidying up cushions, wiping down counters, and trying to figure out what on earth they could want to talk to me about. By the time their car pulled into the driveway, I had convinced myself it was something terrible. They came in, and it wasn't the usual, "Hi, Grandma," chaotic entry with the kids. They'd left Maya and Ben with a sitter. This was formal. Let's sit at the kitchen table, Mom. David said, pulling out a chair for me. Susan sat across from me. She folded her hands on the table and gave me that bright, tight smile of hers. Rhonda, she started, David and I have been so concerned about you. I must have looked confused. Concerned? About what? About this, she said, gesturing around the big, empty kitchen. This house. You all alone here. David says your knees have been bothering you on the stairs, and the yard. It's just so much for one person to handle. I felt my face get a little warm. It was one thing for me to feel it, but it was another to have them point it out. I'm managing, Susan, I said, a little stiffly. We know you are, Mom. David chimed in, putting his hand over mine. You always manage, but you shouldn't have to. We worry about you. What if you fell on those stairs? We wouldn't know for hours. That hit me, because it was a fear I had myself. Susan leaned forward, her voice dropping into that sweet, sincere tone. Rhonda, we have a solution. A perfect solution. For all of us. I looked at David. He was nodding, a little smile on his face. We have all that space in our backyard. Susan continued. We've been talking. What if we built a beautiful new in-law suite? Right on our property. It would be all on one level, no stairs. It would have its own entrance, a beautiful little kitchenette, a walk-in shower. All brand new, just for you. I just stared at her. I couldn't find my voice. And, Mom, David said, his eyes lighting up, you'd be right there. The kids, they could just run across the yard to see you every day after school. You could come over for dinner every night. No more being alone. That was it. That was the line. No more being alone. I could see it. Maya running over with a book to read to me. Ben showing me some new bug he found. I'd be part of their lives every single day. I'd be Grandma, not just the old lady they had to visit. I'd be there. I don't know what to say. I stammered. That sounds wonderful, but the cost. That's the best part, Susan said, her smile widening. This place, Rhonda, the equity you have in this house is incredible. You'd sell this place. The money from the sale would more than pay for the entire construction of the new suite. And just think, no more property taxes. No more giant heating bills. No more yard work. You'd be living rent-free, worry-free. And you'd have a nice little nest egg left over from the sale, too. It did sound perfect. It sounded logical. It solved every single problem that was keeping me up at night. The loneliness, the physical burden of the house, the financial drain. I looked at my son. Is this really what you want? More than anything, Mom, he said. I could have cried from relief. It felt like I could finally breathe for the first time in 3 years. My family, they did want me. They were worried about me. They had a plan to bring me back into the fold. Yes, I said, the tears finally coming. Oh, yes, that sounds wonderful. We spent the next hour talking about it. Susan had already been looking at floor plans. We talked about where the windows would go, what color the cabinets would be. I was going to be involved in every step. By the time they left, I was floating. I wasn't just solving my problems. I was helping my children, my equity, my home. It was going to be the thing that brought us all together. I didn't even wait until the next morning. As soon as they were gone, I picked up the phone and dialed a number I knew by heart. Tom Sullivan, please. It's Rhonda Boylan. Tom had been our realtor for 40 years. He'd sold us this very house. Rhonda, what a surprise. How are you holding up? I'm doing really well, Tom, I said, a smile so big it hurt my face. You're not going to believe this, but I'm ready to sell. I'm moving in with David and Susan. There was a short pause. Well, that's wonderful news, Rhonda. And let me tell you, the market is hot. Really hot. A house like yours in this neighborhood, we can have it listed by Friday and sold in 2 weeks. I bet on it. 2 weeks. It was happening so fast. When I hung up the phone, I looked around my big, dark kitchen. It wasn't a burden anymore. It was my ticket back to my family, back to a life that mattered. Tom came over 2 days later. He put the for sale sign in the yard, and I swear it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. I was already in the attic, pulling down empty boxes, ready to pack up my old life and start my new one. I was so happy. I was so hopeful. I had no idea at all. The next 2 weeks were a blur, but in the best way. My realtor, Tom, was right. The market was on fire. We had an open house that Saturday, and by Monday morning, we had 3 all-cash offers, all over the asking price. It was dizzying. I spent my days in the attic and the basement, surrounded by dust and memories. I found David's old model rockets and my wedding album. I sorted Robert's old work shirts into a pile for donation. And honestly, it didn't even feel sad. It felt light. Every box I taped up, every old piece of furniture I marked for Goodwill, it felt like I was shedding a heavy old skin. I wasn't getting rid of my life. I was just packing up the best parts to take with me to a new one. I hummed while I worked. I was thinking about what kind of curtains to get for the suite. I was imagining Maya and Ben running across the grass to Grandma's house after school. That weekend, David and Susan insisted I come over for dinner. We have to celebrate, Mom. David said on the phone. I was thrilled. This was it. This was my new life starting. I got to their house, and the kids tackled me with hugs at the door. Grandma, are you really coming to live in our backyard? Maya yelled. That's the plan. I laughed, hugging her back. We had a wonderful, chaotic dinner. We were all talking about the new suite, and I was letting the kids vote on whether my front door should be red or blue. It was loud and messy and perfect. After dinner, the kids went into the living room to watch a movie. The 3 of us, David, Susan, and I, were still at the kitchen table with our coffee. I was telling them about the all-cash offer I'd just accepted. Just then, Susan's phone, which was on the table, lit up with an alert. She glanced at it, and her whole face just tightened. The smile vanished. It was like a light switch flipped. David noticed it, too. What's wrong, honey? Susan let out a long, heavy sigh. She didn't look at us. She just stared at her phone. It's the facility, she said, her voice flat. The monthly bill. It just posted. David's face tensed. I thought we paid that on the 1st. We did, she said, rubbing her temples. This is the new rate. It just kicked in. She finally looked up, and her eyes were just tired. They're raising it again. Now, I need to explain about Susan's mother, Barbara. I'd only met Barbara a handful of times, mostly at David and Susan's wedding, and when the kids were born. She lived back east, in Pennsylvania, where Susan grew up. She was a very proud woman, always dressed to the nines. About 5 years ago, she'd been diagnosed with Parkinson's. It had progressed quickly, and for the last 2 years, she'd been in an assisted living facility. And not just any facility. Susan had put her in a very nice one with specialized nursing care. I knew, just from little things Susan had said, that it was a terrible strain on them. Susan was her only child, so she handled everything. All the frantic calls with doctors, all the insurance paperwork, and, most of all, the bills. And those bills were astronomical. I'm talking more than a mortgage, every single month. Back at the kitchen table, David reached for her hand. How much? Susan just shook her head, like she didn't even want to say the number out loud. $800, David. They're raising it $800 a month. Out of nowhere. Where is that supposed to come from? It's breaking us. She looked desperate. I'm trying to find a cheaper place, she said, her voice starting to wobble. But everything is either full or they're just awful. You know, places that smell like bleach and sadness. I can't do that to her. I can't. Sitting there, my heart just went out to her. Here I was floating on my cloud with all this money about to come in from my house. And here she was drowning. I saw her not as my daughter-in-law, but just as another woman, another daughter, trying to do the right thing for her mother. I knew what that felt like. I'd taken care of my own mom at the end of her life. I knew that bone-deep, panicked exhaustion. I put my hand on her arm. Susan, I'm so sorry. That's a terrible, stressful thing to be dealing with. That's just awful. She just nodded, pulling her hand away to quickly wipe her eyes. She took a deep breath and forced that bright smile back on. Thanks, Rhonda. I'm sorry to complain. It's fine. We'll be fine. Let's talk about something happy. Let's talk about your suite. And we did. We spent another 20 minutes talking about paint colors and whether we should plant rose bushes or hydrangeas. But the whole drive home, in the dark, I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. I couldn't get her panicked face out of my mind. It's breaking us. And a new thought started to form. With the sale of my house, I was going to have, well, a lot of money after we paid for the construction of the suite. I was still going to have a very, very comfortable nest egg. I started doing the math in my head. With me moving in, I wasn't just not a burden, I was actually a solution. My move, my money, it wasn't just building my new home. It was going to ease the financial pressure on all of them. My presence would not only give them my help with the grandkids, but the money from my house would free up their own income to handle Barbara's care. This move wasn't just good for me. It was good for the whole family. It would solve Susan's money worries, too. That night, I went to bed feeling even better about our plan. I wasn't just a lonely old mother being taken in. I felt like I was saving them. I was so busy feeling like a hero. I never once stopped to think that Susan was doing the exact same math and coming to a very, very different conclusion. That feeling, that wonderful, warm feeling of being a problem solver, of helping my family, it just wouldn't leave me alone. I was on such a high from that dinner. My house sale, as I said, was moving at the speed of light. Tom, my realtor, had found the perfect all-cash buyer, a young family who loved the house just as it was. The inspection was done, the appraisal was waived, and we were set to close in just 10 days. 10 days. It felt like my new life was sprinting toward me. I was in the guest room, sorting through old linens, when I thought about Susan's face at the dinner table, that pinched, worried look she had when she saw the bill for her mother's care. "It's breaking us," she had said. I just couldn't shake it. Then I thought about the construction. I've been around long enough to know that nothing ever just starts. You need permits from the county. You have to hire a contractor, and they always want a big deposit just to put you on their schedule. All of that would have to be paid before my house sale closed. That meant David and Susan would have to front all that money that I now knew, for a fact, they didn't really have. They were already being squeezed. I stopped packing. I went downstairs and sat at my desk. I pulled out the checkbook for my personal savings account. Robert and I had always been careful. We weren't rich, but we saved. This account was my rainy day fund. My what if money? It was separate from the house, separate from everything. It was my safety net. I looked at the balance. Then I thought about Susan's face again. I thought about my new home. I thought about Maya and Ben running across the yard. Why should they have to scramble? Why should they be stressed? I'm the one with the safety net. I'm the one who can make this easy. It was the best idea I'd ever had. It felt good. It felt powerful. After 3 years of feeling old and useless, I was finally the person who could make things happen. I wasn't the burden. I was the solution. I didn't even call them. I was too excited. I wanted to see the looks on their faces. I drove right to my bank and had them cut a cashier's check. Then I got in my car and drove straight over to their house. It was a Wednesday afternoon, just before 3. I knew David was working from home and the kids would be home from school soon. I rang the doorbell and I was just beaming. I couldn't stop smiling. I felt like Santa Claus. David opened the door, a little surprised. "Mom? Hey, what's up? I have a surprise," I said, walking past him into the entryway. "Where's Susan?" Susan came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She had that same tired look on her face. "Rhonda, is everything okay? Is there a problem with the sale?" "Everything is perfect," I said. I held out the envelope I was carrying. I was thinking, I know you can't start construction without paying for permits and putting down a deposit, and I know you two are under a lot of pressure right now. I looked right at Susan. "I don't want you to have to wait. I want to get this started now. So, this is for the in-law suite, to get the ball rolling." David took the envelope from me. He looked confused. He opened it, unfolded the check, and his jaw just dropped. "Mom," he whispered. He just stared at it. Mom, this is $20,000. Susan came up behind him and looked over his shoulder. Her hand flew up to her mouth. "Oh my, Rhonda." They both looked up from the check, and then they looked at each other. It was just a split-second look. So fast, I almost missed it. At the time, I thought it was just shock. Pure, dumbfounded gratitude. Of course, now I know exactly what that look was. It wasn't gratitude. It was the look of two people who had just seen their risky bet pay off bigger than they ever could have imagined. David finally found his voice. "Mom, we can't accept this. This is too much. We were just going to put it on a credit card until the house closed." "Nonsense," I said, waving my hand. "A credit card? With those interest rates? Don't be silly. It's not a gift. It's an investment. It's an investment in my new home, in our future. You use this to pay the contractor, get the permits. And Susan," I looked at her again. "Maybe this eases the pressure. Just a little bit. With, other things." Her eyes filled with tears. real tears. She lunged forward and hugged me. She squeezed me so hard, I almost lost my breath. "Rhonda," she whispered, her voice thick. This helps more than you will ever know." When she pulled back, she was smiling. A real smile, not the tight, polite one. David was just shaking his head, looking at the check. "Wow, Mom, thank you. This is amazing. This gets everything started. Right now." I left their house about 10 minutes later, just floating on air. I didn't even stay for a cup of tea. I just wanted to go home and hold on to that feeling. Driving home, I felt like I was 10 feet tall. I had done it. I had fixed their stress. I had taken care of my family. I had eased Susan's burden about her mother and given my son a head start on building my new home. I wasn't just a lonely old woman. I wasn't a spare part. I was the key, the one who made it all possible. I felt like the best mother in the world. I was so busy being proud of myself, I never saw the knife they were holding right behind their backs. That high, that incredible feeling of being the hero, it lasted for 2 whole days. I was on cloud 9. My house was sold, my new home was being planned, and my family was taken care of. All thanks to me. The following Friday, just a few days after I'd given them the check, I was at the hardware store picking up some more packing tape. I passed a display of paint swatches, little cards of color, all with hopeful names. I smiled, thinking about my new little suite. On a whim, I picked up a few. Seafoam Mist, Morning Sunday, Pale Sand. I wanted to see what Susan thought. After all, she had such good taste. This was going to be fun. I didn't even call. I was so excited, so full of this new, easy family feeling. I just drove straight over. It was about 2:30 in the afternoon. David was working from home, and the kids weren't home from school yet. When I pulled into their driveway, I saw David's car, so I knew they were there. I grabbed the little paint chips from my purse and practically skipped to the front door. It was just a little bit ajar. They must have been getting a package or something. I pushed it open, smiling. "Hello," I called out, stepping into the entryway. "It's just me." The house was quiet. I took a few more steps in, holding the paint swatches in my hand. "David? Susan?" Then I heard them. Their voices were coming from the back office, down the hall. They weren't shouting. It was worse. Their voices were low, tense, and angry. I froze. I wasn't trying to snoop. I just stopped. You know that feeling when you walk into a room and the air is just wrong? "It's the only way, David," Susan said. Her voice was sharp like a razor. I know, David said. His voice was tired. "But it's just what?" Susan snapped. I just ran the numbers again. My mother's facility, with the new rate, we can't afford that, and the new construction. It's one or the other. We can't do both. My heart gave a little jolt. And the new construction? David sighed. It was a long, heavy sound. "So what's the plan?" We already took your mom's $20,000. I felt my hand, the one holding the paint swatches, just go numb. I must have heard wrong. What did he mean, took? I gave them that money. For the suite. There was a long silence. Then Susan spoke, her voice suddenly cold, calculated. "We built the suite," she said. "That's the plan. But it's not for your mom." I literally, in that moment, could not feel my feet on the floor. I thought, not for me? Then who? David said it, for me. His voice was a whisper. "What are you talking about? Not for my mom? Then who?" "For my mother," Susan said. "We move my mother in. We get her out of that place." "Barbara?" David sounded shocked. "Here? But what about my mom? Her house closes in a week. Where is she going to go?" And then Susan said the words that I will just never, ever forget. "She can stay in the spare bedroom." She said, like she was talking about an old suitcase. It's fine. We'll tell her the construction is delayed. Permit problems or something. She'll believe it. She'll be in the spare room for now. The spare bedroom. The spare bedroom? The one they use for storage, the one with the old treadmill and the boxes of their winter clothes. That's where I was going. I looked down at the paint swatches in my hand. Seafoam mist. Morning Sunday. For a suite that was never going to be mine. I felt so stupid. I don't know, Susan, David said. He sounded weak. He wasn't angry for me. He was just worried. For how long? And what about your mom's care? She needs a lot of care. She's not easy. And then Susan, then she laughed. It wasn't a nice sound. That's the point, she said. Rhonda is the care. The air just left my lungs. I had to put my other hand on the wall to stay standing. I am the care? Think about it. David. Susan's voice was getting excited now, like she was explaining this brilliant, wonderful idea. It's perfect. She's retired. She told us herself she's bored and lonely. She has nothing else to do. She can be the full-time, unpaid nurse. She can do the morning routine, the pills, the feeding, the bathing. She'll be happy to do it. She'll think she's helping the family. She was using my own words against me. My loneliness, my desire to be part of their family, she was twisting it into a job description. It solves everything, Susan went on. We get my mother out of that facility, which saves us a fortune. We get the rest of the money from your mom's house sale to pay off our credit card debt. We already have the $20,000 she just gave us, and we get a free live-in nurse. It's a brilliant plan. There was a long, long pause, and I just stood there in their hallway praying. Say no, David, please. Say no. Tell her she's crazy. Tell her that's your mother. And then I heard him speak. Wow, he said, his voice quiet. That's actually brilliant, Susan. I didn't make a sound. I didn't drop the paint swatches. I didn't gasp. I just turned around. I backed up, one step at a time, my shoes not making a sound on the carpet. I pulled the front door toward me, slowly, until I heard the latch click. I walked to my car. I got in. I sat there, in their driveway, with the keys in my hand. The little paint chips were still clutched in my fist. I had squeezed them so hard they were bent and crumpled. Seafoam mist. It was never about my loneliness. It was never about keeping me safe from the stairs. It was never about me being with my grandkids. It was about my money and my time. I wasn't a mother. I wasn't family. I was a resource. I was an ATM and an unpaid employee. They hadn't just broken my heart. They had emptied it. They had taken my love and my hope and my generosity and my $20,000, and they'd turned it all into a brilliant plan. I sat in the car, in front of their house, for a full 10 minutes. My whole body was ice cold. And then something else happened. The ice, it turned into fire. I drove home. I don't remember the exact route I took. I just remember that the fire I felt in their driveway had burned away all the fog in my head. My hands were on the steering wheel, and they weren't shaking from sadness or fear. They were steady. They were shaking with a cold, clear, righteous anger I don't think I'd felt in my entire life. I didn't cry. Crying is what you do when you're helpless, when you're a victim. I wasn't a victim. I was a 67-year-old woman who had just been played for a fool. And I was furious. She has nothing else to do. I thought about that. I thought about the thousands of school lunches I'd packed, the fevers I'd stayed up all night with, the decades I'd spent making sure my husband and my son had everything they needed. All of that, and it added up to nothing. Rhonda is the care. By the time I pulled into my own driveway, into the driveway of my house, the plan was fully formed. It wasn't complicated. It was simple. It was final. I walked into my big, silent kitchen. The silence didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt like a fortress. It felt like mine. I didn't pace. I didn't wring my hands. I sat down at my kitchen table, the one where I'd felt so isolated for 3 years. It didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a command center. I put my purse down, pulled out my old-fashioned paper address book, and opened it. Then I picked up the phone. I made 3 calls. The first call was to my realtor, Tom. He picked up on the second ring, all cheerful. "Rhonda, great news. I was just about to call you. The buyer's financing is all buttoned up, and—" "Tom," I said. I must have interrupted him, but I didn't care. My voice was calm. It was so calm, it barely sounded like me. It was clear as a bell. "Tom, I need you to take my house off the market. Immediately." There was a long, stunned silence on the other end of the line. "What? Rhonda, what are you talking about? We're set to close. We close in 6 days. The contracts are signed. You can't." "Watch me," I said. "I'm not selling." "Rhonda," he said, and now he sounded panicked. "Legally, you can't just— the buyers could sue. You'll lose your earnest money. You'll—" "I don't care what it costs," I said, my voice like stone. "I am not signing another piece of paper. I am not selling my house. Kill the deal. I've changed my mind. But your son, the in-law suite, your plan— my plans have changed, Tom. Please, handle it." I hung up the phone. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't apologize. I didn't say thank you. I just hung up, one down. I flipped the page in my address book. The second call was to my bank, the wealth management department. My late husband Robert had always told me, if you're ever in real trouble, you call this number, not the 1-800 number. Well, I was in real trouble. A man named Michael answered. "Mrs. Boylan, how can I help you?" "I need to protect my assets," I said, that same cold, clear voice. "All of them. My savings, my checking, my late husband's retirement accounts. Everything." "Protect them?" he asked, his voice cautious. "From what? Is this about the house sale not going through?" "The house sale is off," I said. "This is about family. I need to move my significant assets into an irrevocable trust." An irrevocable trust, Mrs. Boylan?" He sounded shocked, and I couldn't blame him. "That's a very permanent legal step. It means that you can't even easily access those funds." "I know exactly what it means," I said. "It means they can't access it. It means no one can borrow from it. No one can help me manage it. No one can talk me out of it." I see. "Well, we can certainly set up a meeting with our legal and trust department." "Good," I said. "I want it done by Monday, and I want to make it perfectly legally clear that my son, David Boylan, is to have no access, no co-signature, no power of attorney, nothing. Is that understood?" "Yes, Mrs. Boylan," he said, his voice now very, very professional. We can certainly get that started." I hung up, 2 down. The $20,000 I'd given them, that was gone. I knew that. That was a $20,000 lesson, a stupid tax. But the rest, the nest egg that Robert and I had built for our future, it was safe. It was mine. I closed the address book. I didn't need it for the last call. I'd had this number memorized for 6 months. "Janet's Journeys, this is Janet." "Hi, Janet. It's Rhonda Boylan." "Rhonda, how are you, honey?" Still dreaming about that European cruise. Her voice was so bright and cheerful. "I'm not dreaming anymore, Janet." I said, "I want to book it." "Oh, wonderful," She said, "Are we thinking next spring? Or maybe for the fall colors in—" "No," I said. I looked at the calendar hanging on my wall. "I want to book that 3-month Grand European River Cruise, the one we talked about." "Oh, that's the big one." "Okay, and when are we—" "The one that leaves next week." Another stunned silence. Janet was my third one of the day. "Next week? Rhonda, that's very last minute. I don't know about availability, and the price—" "Please check Janet." I said, "I want the best stateroom you have. The one with the full balcony. First-class flights to get there. Whatever it costs." I could hear her typing fast. "My goodness. Rhonda, you are in luck." There was a last-minute cancellation. One first-class suite on the top deck. It's available. It leaves from Budapest in 6 days. 6 days. The exact day I was supposed to close on my house. The exact day I was supposed to pack my little suitcase and move into their spare bedroom. The exact day I was supposed to start my new job. I almost laughed. "Book it," I said. "The full 3 months, Rhonda. The full 3 months." "Rhonda, honey, it's a very significant—" "I know exactly how much it costs, Janet. Please, put it on my American Express." I gave her my credit card number and hung up the phone. I sat there at my kitchen table. My house was no longer for sale. My money was being locked away, and in 6 days, I was going to be on a plane to Budapest. They had a brilliant plan. But so did I. I looked at the phone. I knew it would ring soon. Tom, the realtor, would call David. And David would call me. The panic would start. But for now, it was quiet. And in that quiet, I had gone from being a spare part in their lives to being the main character in mine. I didn't hear from them for a full day. I knew it must have been an interesting 24 hours in their house. Tom, my realtor, would have called them to say the deal was dead. Then the buyers would have been calling Tom, probably screaming. It must have been a real scramble. I spent that day in a strange, productive calm. My travel agent, Janet, had emailed me my flight itinerary and cruise confirmation. First class. I looked at it for a long time. Budapest. I'd never even been to Canada. I went online, and I ordered a brand new set of luggage. Lightweight, with those 4-spinner wheels. I even got it in a bright, cheerful red. I wasn't going to be a beige suitcase kind of person anymore. It arrived the next afternoon. I was in my bedroom, which was bright and sunny. I'd opened all the curtains. I had the new empty suitcase open on my bed, and I was just folding a new silk blouse, something I'd bought just for the trip, when my phone rang. I looked at the caller ID. My heart didn't stop. It just hardened. It wasn't David. It was Susan. This was it. She was the one who had made the plan. It was only right that she'd be the one to make this call. I took a breath. I let it ring one more time, just to prove to myself that I could. Then I picked up. My voice was perfectly steady. "Hello, Susan." "Rhonda, what did you do?" Her voice wasn't a question. It was a shriek. It was pure, frantic panic. "What did you do?" "David just got off the phone with your realtor. You killed the deal. You canceled the sale. What is wrong with you? Are you out of your mind?" I held the phone a little bit away from my ear. I looked at the silk blouse on my bed. "Hello, Susan," I said again, as if she hadn't just been screaming at me. "I'm not sure what you mean." "Don't you dare play dumb with me," she yelled. "The house. The sale. You backed out. We were counting on that. Rhonda, we have plans. We've paid deposits. You've ruined everything." I sat down on the edge of my bed. I said, and my voice was so calm, it sounded like it belonged to a stranger. That to sound like a stressful situation. "For you." There was a half second of stunned silence. My calmness had thrown her off, but she recovered, and the panic just spilled out of her. Stressful? Stressful? I'll tell you what's stressful. Rhonda, I just got a certified letter from my mother's facility. They're not just raising the rates. They're giving us a notice, a formal notice of discharge. I didn't say anything. Do you hear me? She was almost crying now. If we don't pay the new rate, plus the 2 months we're already behind, they are moving her out. In 2 weeks, she'll be on the street. Rhonda, we were counting on your house money to fix this. We were counting on it. She had said it out loud. We were counting on your house money, not for my suite, for her mother. She must have realized what she'd said because her tone changed. The screaming stopped, and suddenly she was crying. Real tears or not, I couldn't tell. Rhonda, please. She sniffled. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have yelled. I am so scared. I waited. Look, she said, her voice wobbly. I know we asked a lot of you. And maybe the in-law suite maybe it was just too much too fast. We can forget the in-law suite, okay? We can just forget all about that. Oh, I thought. Now we can forget about it. But this, she said, this is my mother, my sick mother. She's an old woman just like you. She's sick. She didn't do anything wrong. What am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to let her be homeless? Put her in one of those awful state-run places that smell like death? She took a shaky breath, and then she delivered the line she thought was her checkmate. Rhonda, I am begging you, as a mother, you must understand what it's like to be terrified for your family. You just sold your house. You have all that. You must have money. Just lend us what we need. Not for us. For her. For Barbara. Just a loan. We'll pay you back. I swear, we'll pay you back every cent. You can't let my mother be put on the street, can you? You couldn't be that cold. And there it was. The big, debatable moment. She was right. Barbara was innocent. Barbara was a sick, elderly woman. And I was the one who could stop her from being homeless. All I had to do was say yes. All I had to do was be the good, kind, helpful Rhonda I had always been. The old Rhonda would have caved. The old Rhonda would have felt so guilty. She would have written a check just to stop the other woman's suffering. But the old Rhonda was gone. I took a long, slow breath. I stood up from the bed. Oh, Susan, I said. She perked up. Rhonda? Oh, thank you. I knew. Stop, I said. And she did. She just stopped talking. You asked me if, as a mother, I understand, I said, my voice still perfectly, terribly calm. And I've been sitting here thinking about that. And you're right. I do understand. I understand that you needed a full-time, unpaid nurse for your sick mother, and you decided I was the one for the job. Dead silence. I had never, in my life, heard Susan be so quiet. I understand that you and my son looked at me, a lonely old woman who just wanted to be near her grandchildren. And you saw a brilliant plan. You didn't see a mother. You saw an employee you didn't have to pay. She stammered. I don't know what you're talking about. And I especially understand, I said, my voice cutting right through her, that you took $20,000 from me. Money I gave you from my savings in good faith to build my new home. And you took it, you hugged me, knowing full well you were going to use it to build a place for your mother. And that you were planning to stick me in your spare bedroom like an old dog. She was speechless. She had just nothing. So yes, Susan, I understand perfectly, and I'm afraid I won't be able to help you. And I won't be able to help Barbara. That is a stressful situation. For you. Rhonda, wait, she shrieked, her voice suddenly sharp and ugly, all the fake tears gone. You can't do this. You. I have to go, Susan, I said, turning my attention back to my beautiful, new red suitcase. I'm packing. I'll be in Paris next week. Please don't call me again. And I pressed the end button on my phone. I stood there in my sunny bedroom, holding the phone. My heart was pounding, a hard, fast thump, thump, thump. It wasn't a happy feeling. It wasn't a victory. It was just cold and final and necessary. I did think about Barbara, the other old woman, the innocent one, and I felt a pang. I did, a little sharp pang of pity. But then I thought about me, what they were willing to do to me. You can't save someone from drowning when they're the ones standing on your head, holding you under the water. This was a them problem, not a me problem, not anymore. I turned my phone off, completely off, and I went back to packing. I kept my phone turned off for the rest of that day. It was a strangely peaceful feeling. The silence in my house felt different. It was no longer the sound of loneliness. It was the sound of control. I spent the rest of the afternoon packing. I folded sweaters. I rolled up socks. I made a list of all the travel-sized toiletries I would need for 3 months. I went online and read reviews about the best walking shoes for cobblestone streets. I made myself a simple dinner, an omelet, and ate it at my clean kitchen table. I didn't turn on the television. I went to bed early in my own big, comfortable bed. And for the first time in 3 years, I slept soundly. I slept a deep, dreamless 8-hour sleep. The next morning, I woke up with the sun. I made my coffee. I sat at the table and watched a little blue jay splashing in the bird bath in my yard. I knew I couldn't keep the phone off forever. My travel agent would be sending my final e-tickets. The bank would be calling to schedule the signing of the trust paperwork. Life had to go on. I plugged my phone back into the charger and turned it on. I almost dropped my coffee cup. The phone didn't just light up. It vibrated itself halfway across the kitchen counter. It buzzed and beeped for, I am not exaggerating, a full minute. Just BRRR, 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 as a 2-day-old flood of pure panic poured in. I picked it up. 14 missed calls from David. 8 missed calls from Susan. 22 text messages. I opened the texts. My hands were perfectly steady. It was like reading a transcript of 2 people having a complete breakdown. David, Mom, pick up the phone. David, Mom, what did you do? David, Susan is crying. Please call me. Susan, you think you're so clever. You are destroying this family. Susan, Barbara is going to be homeless. This is your fault. David, Mom, I am begging you. Just answer the phone. Susan, I am calling a lawyer. What you did is incredible. David, Mom, where are you? I drove by the house. Your car is there. Pick up. Susan, you are a selfish, evil woman. After everything we did for you. David, Mom, please. Just please. I'm sorry. Just call me. I read every single one. And then I deleted them. All of them. But there was one other notification. A single voicemail from a number I did recognize. It was from Tom, my realtor. He'd left it late last night. I took a sip of my coffee and pressed play. Rhonda, Tom's voice started. He sounded exhausted, just bone tired. It's Tom. Listen, I've handled the buyers. They are not happy at all. They're threatening to sue for damages and breach of contract. We're definitely going to lose your earnest money, but I think I can keep it from going to court if we can talk to them. So, please, you do need to call me back about that. He sighed. But, Rhonda, That's not really why I'm calling. I, I just got off the phone with your son, David, for the third time today, and I don't know what's going on in your family, and it's none of my business, but that kid is in a full-blown 5-alarm panic. I took another sip of coffee. He was screaming at me. Tom continued, screaming at me like it was my fault. He kept asking if I knew where you'd gone. He kept saying, she can't do this. She can't do this. And then he said something. I don't know. He said, we already spent it. We already spent half of her $20,000 on a deposit for the suite. We're out $10,000. She can't back out now. Tom's voice dropped. He kept repeating that. Half the 20,000. I didn't know what to say. And I could hear his wife, Susan, in the background. She was just yelling. Just wailing. David was saying, what are we going to do? The facility just called me demanding payment. We don't have that money. We don't have any money. And then I heard her, clear as day. She screamed at him, this is your fault. You were supposed to handle your mother. You're weak. You're a weak, pathetic. Tom cleared his throat. And, well, then she called you a word, Rhonda, that I am not going to repeat on a voicemail. A terrible word. Look, Rhonda, I'm your realtor, not your, I don't know. But David is in a very bad way. He's talking about bankruptcy. He's talking about his mother-in-law being homeless. He's a mess. Just call me when you can, so we can deal with the legal side of this. Okay, bye. I put the phone down. So, there it was. Their brilliant plan had completely and utterly collapsed. The irony, it was almost funny. They had planned a nice, neat, financial and logistical nightmare for me. And in the end, they were the ones trapped in it. They were out $10,000 that they'd already given to a contractor. They were being hounded by Barbara's facility. They were screaming at each other. They were, in David's own words, out of money. They had tried to take my house, my savings, and my freedom, and they had lost. Susan was right about one thing, though. It was David's fault. He was weak. He had a choice. He could have been a husband and a son. But he chose to follow his wife's ugly, greedy plan over protecting his own mother. My phone buzzed again. A new text. From David. Mom, I am begging you. I will do anything. I know what you heard. I'm sorry. Please. I didn't feel anything. Not sadness. Not even anger anymore. I just felt clear. I put my phone on Do Not Disturb. I'd call Tom back later to handle the legal fines. I'd pay them, of course. It was a small price to pay. But for now, I had other things to do. I had to go online and find my new passport, the one I'd renewed 3 years ago, just in case. I was glad I did. The next 6 days were the strangest of my life. My phone, which I'd turned back on but put on Do Not Disturb, would light up every few minutes. A long, buzzing glow on the kitchen counter. David! Susan! David! I never answered. Not once. I had exactly 2 calls to make. The first was to Tom, my realtor. I told him to handle the legal side of killing the sale. Pay the penalties. I told him, whatever the fine is, pay it out of my savings. I want this done. It cost me thousands of dollars to break that contract. But as I signed the check, I thought about the $20,000 I'd already lost. I thought about the free labor I was supposed to provide. This was a bargain. This was my exit fee. My second call was to my bank. I went to a downtown office, a place with a lot of dark wood and quiet carpets. I sat at a long, polished table with my banker, Michael, and a lawyer who worked for the trust department. I signed paper after paper. I read every line. My hand didn't shake. I was locking away the money that Robert and I had worked our whole lives for, protecting it, making it safe, not just from David, but for him, in a way. He would inherit it, as was always the plan. But he would inherit it after I was gone. He couldn't touch it while I was alive. When I was done, my banker, Michael, looked at me. He didn't look at me like I was a confused old lady. He looked at me, I don't know, with respect. He saw a client. He saw a woman who knew her own mind. On the 6th day, the day I was supposed to be hauling boxes into their spare room, a black car service pulled into my driveway. My new, bright red suitcases were lined up by the front door. I turned off the coffee pot. I grabbed my purse and my new passport. I took one last look around my big, quiet house. It was still big. It was still quiet, but it didn't feel lonely anymore. It felt peaceful. It felt like mine. I locked the door behind me, and I didn't look back. I'm not in my house right now. As I'm telling you this, I'm sitting on a small, private balcony. My balcony, the one I paid for. I'm holding a wonderful, chilled glass of white wine. And I'm looking at, I think it's a castle, an actual castle, perched on a green hill right out of a fairy tale. I've been on this river cruise for 3 weeks now. That first flight, it was my first time in first class. A nice young woman brought me a warm towel for my hands. Me, Rhonda Boylan. I was so worried that I would be just as lonely here as I was at home. A lonely old woman, just in a different setting. But it's not like that at all. I sit at a different table for dinner every night just because I can. I've met a woman named Carol from Australia. She's a widow, too. We played a very rowdy game of gin rummy last night. I met a couple from Texas, Bill and Mary, who are just loud and funny and keep trying to teach me how to two-step in the ship's lounge. I get up every single morning, and I look at the little newsletter they leave on my door, and I have choices. Do I want to take the guided walking tour of this little German village? Do I want to stay on the sun deck and read my book? Do I want to take a nap? I have nothing I have to do. And that's when I realized Susan was right about one thing. I don't have anything else to do. But she said it like it was a curse, like it made me useless. She was wrong. It's not a curse. It's a luxury. It's the one luxury I've earned. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you my heart isn't broken. It is. In the evenings when it's quiet, I think about David, my son, my little boy. I miss the man I thought he was. I miss him so much, it's a physical ache. And I miss my grandkids. Oh, God, do I miss Maya and Ben? That's the part that twists my stomach. It wasn't their fault. None of it. And I'm missing it. I'm missing Maya's school play. I'm missing Ben's first t-ball game. A friend of mine, who still sees Susan at school functions, sent me a picture from Facebook. Maya, she lost her 2 front teeth. That just about knocked the wind out of me. It hurt. But here's the thing I've learned, sitting on this balcony, watching the world drift by. I am sad. I am grieving the loss of my son. But I am not sad about my decision. They made the plan. I just refuse to be the victim in it. I refuse to be the spare part. I refuse to be the unpaid nurse. I'm 67 years old. I've spent my entire life putting other people first. My husband, my child, my own parents. And that's a good life. But it's not the only life. I am Rhonda. And I am finally putting myself first. I wanted to tell this story because I just feel like someone out there needs to hear it. Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like you were just being taken for granted by the very people you love the most? How did you finally, if you finally Stand up for yourself. And I really, really have to know, what would you have done when Susan called? When she was crying, begging for her own sick, innocent mother? Did I do the right thing? Did I do the right thing by hanging up? Or was I just as cold and calculating as she was? I've been thinking about that phone call a lot. Please, let me know what you think in the comments. I'll be reading them. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thank you. Thank you for listening to my story. If you can relate to it, please hit that like button. And maybe share it with someone else who might be feeling a little bit invisible. Someone who might need to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I think I'm going to have a lot more stories to tell. Thanks for listening.